Good day there guys, welcome to your tutorial. In this video I'm going to be going through Angular's built-in control flow. I want to show you the control flow in the simplest way possible. We're going to be using this small task board basically to understand the @if, the @for, the @empty and the @switch. And while we do that, I want to answer two important questions properly. So why Angular added this and what is actually different now. Alright, so before we go block by block, I think the more important question is why Angular added this in the first place. Because we already had conditionals and loops, so there's not really about Angular suddenly being able to do something new. The real reason is that the older structural directive syntax could be a bit awkward. It worked, but it felt often more Angular specific than it needed to, especially once templates got bigger. Angular's own explanation is basically this: they wanted something more intuitive, something closer to normal JavaScript control flow, something easier to use without extra imports, better for type checking, and also better for list rendering performance. So the real story here is not new capability, it's better template economics, conditionals that are more that are read more naturally, loops that are easier to follow, empty states that live where they belong, and better defaults for lists. So on the screen, I basically have a toolbar, I have a heading, I have some controls here, I have a filter, I have buttons, this is summary cards, this is our loading state, these are our list of tasks, and this is our basically our empty state for when we do not have any tasks found. Alright, so we're going to start off by fixing this app. So as you can see, it's not exactly working as it should. As you can see, the loading is only supposed to be displaying once we're actually in the loading state. This should definitely not be displayed together with the list of tasks, and the same for the empty task state. They should definitely not be displayed when we actually do have tasks, right? So let's start with the @if. So at a basic level, it's basically conditional rendering, right? The improvement here is not that Angular now supports conditionals, because it always did. What's different is that the full branch now lives in one place. So on this page, a very normal branch is if the app is loading, show a loading state, otherwise show the real content. And that's pretty much what we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and look at our loading. So we have a signal here called loading that's set up over here. And at the moment, we're just going to be toggling with the button for the loading state. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to our loading. I want to wrap this with an if. And then we are going to be moving this over here, and we have a loading signal. So if loading, we'll do an else, and this will ensure that these two will never be shown at the same time, which they should not be, right? It's either busy loading or we have data. So once I save that, you can see our loading disappears. Once I do a simulate loading, so obviously this would be like some API call in your app or anything that basically requires a loader, you can see that this now displays the loader only. Once we actually say stop loading, we get back to the screen over here. All right, so that's the real difference. Like the UI branches together. With older Angular, once you introduced an else, you could end up jumping between an ng if and a separate ng template. Here the structure is much clearer. So that's not a new capability, it's just better readability, right? And that matters because like most real UIs are full of branches like this. You have loading versus loaded, you have as data versus no data, you have show this section versus hide this section, and that's where the if helps. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is the tasks. So at the moment you can see I only have one task displaying here, and you can see we are actually getting the first element of our filter task signal, where this actually consists of a bunch of tasks, which are all of these here. All right, so we need to actually render this with our for, and again Angular already had loops, and the question is not whether Angular can render a list, the question is what has changed, right? And the big change is that list rendering now feels more direct. and tracking is part of the syntax itself. So on this page, the clearest example is the task list. each task card is represented by one visual unit. All right, so let's go ahead and put in our for loop for this. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and say at 4. So mine popped up with the structure. Just going to move this in, and this would be our filtered task signal. Let's just call this task. For the track, I'm going to explain this shortly, but I'm just going to say task.id and then task.title and task.description. I'm going to save this and show you how that looks. So you can see that this now actually renders correctly. So I feel like the readability improvement is immediate. Like you can look at this block and understand that this section renders one card per task. But the really important part is the track task ID, right? That's not just extra syntax. It's one of the main reasons why this flow is actually worth taking seriously. So the track helps us maintain the relationship between your data and the DOM. So when the list changes, Angular can do the minimum necessary DOM updates instead of treating the whole list like it might need to be rebuilt, right? So that matters because lists change all the time. Like you filter them, you sort them, you add items, you remove items, you update one item in the middle. And Angular needs some stable way to know which rendered card belongs to which piece of data. And that's what the track is doing. So in this app, the track task.id is the right choice because the ID is stable and unique. And that gives Angular a reliable way and a reliable identity for each task, right? So that's exactly what we want here. And this is also where the new syntax is a lot better than a lot of the older examples, because with the older NG4, many people actually skip the track by, even when they should not have, right? And now tracking is pushed into the normal loop shape, which makes the better pattern much harder to ignore. So what's changed is not that the loops just look nicer, but actually Angular made item identity part of the normal way you write the loop, and that's a very meaningful improvement. If items have a stable unique ID, tracked by that. If the collection is like truly static and it really never changes, Angular says you can use the $ index. You can also track by the item object itself. All right, so the next step I want to actually fix on this page is the no task found. So we're going to get to the empty, right? So if I do at empty, and then let's just fix this over here. All right, there we go. So we can see that has disappeared. So empty is one of the most practical parts of the new control flow because empty states are normal. So basically a folder can remove our results, a search cannot return anything, or a list could just be empty. And let's say, for example, that is the case. When I go clear tasks, we can see that we get our empty state, which is no task found. If I want to restore the data, we can see that that disappears. So, and an older Angular can absolutely handle that, right? But the empty state is often like somewhere else in the template. And what's different now is that the fallback lives right next to the loop. So in this app, if I clear all the tasks or filter in a way that returns nothing, I want a proper empty state, right? So I think it's a small change, but I think it's a very good one. Like the loop and its fallback belong to the same concern, and how they live together. And that kind of makes the template easier to understand, makes it easier to maintain later. Like if someone opens this file, they can immediately see what happens when there are items, and they can immediately see what happens when there are none, right? I think the shape is just better. So then there's the switch. So again, Angular had switch style rendering. So what's changed is mainly the clarity of the structure. So switch is useful when one value drives several mutually exclusive UI outcomes. And in this app, an obvious example would be the status. So we have status over here. We have the priority as well. And these are the two that we will be using a switch with. At the moment, all of them are displaying, and that's incorrect. All right, so let's go ahead and fix that, and then let's go switch. I'm going to go case, and then I'm going to go to do. Let's move that up. let's also say that this is going to be based on the task.status case. I'm going to go doing at case. I'm going to go done, and then we have a default which will be unknown. I'm going to save this. Let's have a look at how this displays now. Alright, so we can see the correct status is being displayed. Let's just do the same for the priority. Now let's go task dot priority. Let's go case low. Let's go case medium. Let's go case high. Let's go case default. Alright, once I save that, you'll see that they now display correctly with the priority and the priority and their status. Alright, so this reads better than stacking several separate like if blocks, because the template actually tells you very clearly that all of these outcomes belong to one variable, and I think that's the real value. If one variable drives like several exclusive UI results, the switch gives the template a clearer shape. So I wouldn't use it everywhere, but when the UI is truly state driven like this, it does make a lot of sense. And I think my opinion on this is like Angular's built-in control flow is not like revolutionary in the sense that it unlocks something brand new. You could have already built all of this before, but what changed is that Angular now gives you a more direct and more readable way to express the same UI logic. In the case of lists, it also nudges you towards a better rendering pattern, and that's why it matters. And once you use it, even in a simple page like this, the improvements are pretty easy to see. So if you've been ignoring Angular's built-in control flow just because it looked like another syntax update, I think this is the right way to. I think something like this is the right way to judge it. Use it in a small page, give it some real UI states, and see whether the template becomes easy to read. For me, it does, and that's a win. I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Please be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.